Welcome to Season 2 of the Erotic Realm podcast, where we explore the world of eroticism, one erotic realm at a time. I'm Em, a sexologist and kinkster. The mission of the Erotic Realm is to humanize desire in all of its forms, including darker desires. Each episode, we dive deep into the psychology of desire with a sexpert, everyday kinkster, or a kink expert. This is an independent podcast. To support it, please consider becoming a paid subscriber at psychologyofdesire.com, where you'll also find deep dives into desire and surveys that you can participate in. You can also sign up there to get the podcast delivered directly to your inbox when it's released. And now for today's episode. The following conversation explores gender, embodiment, and the psychology of erotic becoming. I'm joined by Dreamer, an Altersex transgender woman, Primal sadomasochist, leather master, educator, and scientist whose life explores the intersection of identity, power, and embodiment. We talk about the psychological experience of transition, the journey toward feeling at home in one's body, and how erotic identity can evolve alongside gender integration. Dreamer shares her experience of choosing a non-traditional path of gender confirmation surgery, what it means to live in a body that holds both sets of genitals, and how this embodiment shapes power dynamics, vulnerability, and desire. This is a conversation about courage, embodiment, and the radical act of telling the truth about one's identity, even when the world insists on simpler categories. Enjoy. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Erotic Realm podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be exploring the erotic realm of Dreamer. Welcome, Dreamer.
Hi.
Happy to have you here. So before we step into your eroticism, I'd love to start with you as a person. What does your day-to-day life look like right now, and what do you enjoy doing outside of kink?
Right now, I'm in the middle of a life transition. I have accepted a new job and I'm moving states,
Ooh.
and I am currently sitting in the half disassembled home dungeon in my current home, speaking to you.
Oh,
So, my day to day right now, I'm a scientist in my professional life, and I live with my two partners on Fet Twister Tail and Fin Noctis.
mm-hmm.
And it's the three of us in our home, and we're all gearing up to move together. So it's quite a hectic time.
Oh, well, good luck with your new position. That sounds exciting.
Thank you.
So let's get into your eroticism now. When you speak about your eroticism, how do you identify in terms of your gender, your sexuality, and your kink identity?
Sure. So when you hit me with this question in the email, I started taking some notes,
Cool.
scientist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I sort of condensed it down to 5 things, which might not quite hit all of which will probably hit more than what you had asked for. But
Love
so
it.
I'm pansexual. So regardless of my partner's sex or gender, I enjoy sex with the bodies of all types. I am transgender. I was assigned male at birth. I've spent many years in transition with hormone therapy and multiple rounds of surgery. At this point, I largely consider myself to be at the end of my gender transition, which doesn't mean I stopped growing. It just means I stopped focusing on that so much.
Mm.
I am, this is always a difficult thing to explain. I like the word altersex. So altersex for me it's this catch-all word that describes some combination of primary and secondary physical sex characteristics that aren't typical, I guess. So I had a bottom surgery, and I had a sort of non-traditional bottom surgery. And the end result of that is that I have both genital sets.
Mm-hmm.
So Altersex is the word I like for that. Commonly on the internet, people will use the word salmation.
I haven't heard that
But
before. Salmation.
yeah, yeah.
Where does that come from? Do you know the etymology of that?
Yeah, that comes from um, the same mythological story as hermaphrodites.
Mm.
I think that's the right pronunciation for that. But
Mm-hmm.
the same story as the word hermaphrodite.
Right.
It comes from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Kink wise, I'm a sadomasochist and I am a leather person. Sadomasochist, so this is derivation of pleasure from uh, pain, suffering, giving and taking. And leather is just like you take a whole episode and talk about that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's something fairly important, so I wanted to include it. But it's largely it's like subculture centered on BDSM community and ritualized power exchange.
Mm.
Um, it's an important part of how I do kink because my shared sort of community understanding of what BDSM comes from leather culture.
Right. So you mentioned that you identify as altersex. We haven't had someone on the podcast who identifies in that way. And you described beautifully what it means for you. Just to be clear, by alter, does it mean alternative sex as opposed to intersex?
That is, you nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody wants to co-opt the term intersex because this isn't a way that I was born.
Right.
This was a transition goal for me for my gender transition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I also don't really like the word salmation for it, mostly because of the roots and the story. And it's there are you could spend quite a while going into that, but there's like a sexual assault in the story, and it's not a good thing in my mind. So I don't like that word.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that that isn't the word that sticks, but I don't. How do you influence that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's difficult. Well, altersex is easy to remember, so maybe that will be the one that sticks. Mm-hmm. So, in terms of your kinky self, what would you say are your top 3 kinks currently?
Um, I su- such a broad question.
I know it's difficult.
So to be so okay, the things that I hit on most with my partners, I have a daddy baby girl relationship with Twister Tail. We that is like our core foundation of our relationship. That's how we started, and it is how we interact in a default way. So that's those power exchange elements to that,
Mm.
and that she gives me quite a lot of authority to decide um, things like sweets. If she wants something sweet that she knows she shouldn't have, she'll ask
Cute.
me. So yeah, daddy baby girl stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that. We have a primal dynamic that manifests mostly as the way that we actually have sex. Tends to be a very, I don't know how to describe that, growling and biting and scratching.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Finn Noctis, we have a master slave dynamic. We have a contract that's been in place for almost a year now that we've been editing as we grow. and it essentially describes the authority transfer between the two of us, and the way that we interact, and leaves this sort of wide open space for the way that we physically physically play together. And that's intentional because we try a lot of things. We experiment a lot. If there is some way to experience pain and pleasure, we are going to, if we haven't tried it, we're going to try it at some point.
Beautiful. Can you hear me coughing, by the way?
A little bit.
Okay. I'm muting it on the recording software, so I'm sorry about that. It's just, my throat is playing up. Hopefully it settles.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll continue. One of the traditions on the podcast is exploring a quote with you, and today's quote is from Kate Bornstein, who is a transgender writer, theorist, and playwright whose work has been foundational in queer and trans thought for decades. Her book, Gender Outlaw, first published in the 1990s, challenged the idea that gender must be coherent, binary, or legible to others in order to be real. So Kate once said, "I know I'm not a man, about that I'm very much clear, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm probably not a woman either, at least not according to a lot of people's rules on this sort of thing. The trouble is, we're living in a world that insists we be one or the other, a world that doesn't bother to tell us exactly what one or the other is." So when you hear that, especially the part about being forced to choose without being told what the choices really mean, does it mirror anything in your own journey of identity, embodiment, or self-understanding?
Sure. That is, uh, in a large part, the source of great resentment about masculinity for me is this cultural understanding of being a man or a woman. And when I was in my early 20s before transition, and experiencing these sort of society culturally imposed roles of masculinity, I all I wanted to do was rebel against that. That because I didn't choose it, it was a very difficult thing for me. Um, and that is sort of the root, I suppose, of how I started figuring my own gender shit out. Um, this at this point, I like the term demi girl, because I I express um, sort of the concepts of gender in a few different ways. Culture, like in society, I have embraced and feel very comfortable in a somewhat classical expression of femininity. Like nobody really stops me and knows that I'm trans or anything like that. So I get some one. There's privilege and safety in that. But two, it is where I'm just comfortable being. That said, the sort of ideas of masculinity and the way that like a man should be responsible in a relationship for certain things and these kind of gender roles, a lot of that was I pick and I pick and choose a little bit about what to keep. So earlier I described my relationship with Twister Tail as a daddy baby girl relationship. And there's a lot of these sort of masculine roles in that I very much enjoy because I choose them. And so this concept of like being, having this gender roles imposed on you, it really changes the how it's received and how it feels to be that person. Um, being uh, in society perceived as a woman, but choosing to do these masculine things feels good to me for like complicated reasons. But mostly it's the choice,
Right.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that said, that there's other ways to express gender that aren't necessarily, that don't have to come from society. Um, the way that two people have sex and the sort of roles that you take in that, and the way that gender flavors that is really just between the two of you.
Mm.
I engage in what somebody looking from the outside would describe as probably a masculine role during sex with Twister Tail. And I'm totally fine with that. That's what I want, what I enjoy. Um, Now, that said, I enjoy it the other way around. I also want to be a princess in bed on occasion. So that there is, it changes the dynamic of the gender roles when you get to pick and choose what parts work for you and what parts uh, are not. They don't feel so good, I guess is the way to say it.
Mm-hmm. So have you ever felt pressure to pick a side when it came to your gender?
Sure,
Mm.
every day. Being in the middle is, so to speak, being uh, ambiguous about your gender is, especially today, is a very dangerous thing. Um, and it 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 was surprising, but it shouldn't have been surprising how much easier life is when you aren't ambiguous about your gender. And that's a shame. That
Mm.
that's a that is a terrible thing, but it is my experience of gender. So there is a great pressure from society, from partners who want a traditionally gendered partner. They want them, they want a man to behave like a man and a woman to behave like a woman, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates some pressure, for sure. Even among partners who are queer or who may understand the nuances there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a thing that just gets sort of baked in uh, by the way that we are raised in the culture around us.
Sure.
And it's very difficult to break.
Mm. Mm-hmm. So do you feel like that's a continual process, the breaking of those gender norms?
Yes, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Even even if it's only done in select spaces,
Mm.
I guess, I like to pick and choose my battles.
Yeah.
So, like being visibly trans, visibly queer in the workspace is not the battle I particularly like, although
Right.
I have picked that battle several times in my career. Um, but uh, being visible in that way lets you continuously fight that fight
Mm.
and sort of expand what it means to other people to experience gender.
Yeah.
These these days, I uh, like it, the sort of depth that happens at home with my partners, which Finn Noctis is a very masculine cis male. Twister tail is a little more non-conforming with gender, and it frequently plays with it. And that is a great thing to support, because they have supported me in
Mm.
my transition the same way. So
Mm.
that is my chosen arena to sort of continue to deconstruct
Right.
the aspects of gender that we were imposed with at some point.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your transition. I'm curious, you said that it took you quite a long time. It was a big process. Can we go
Hmm.
back to what it was like for you before you started the transitioning process?
Oh, I mean, I was a dorky metalhead,
Okay.
uh, kind of a fuck boy.
Mm-hmm.
Is I guess is the way to put that. I was um, I was married to a cis woman in a very heteronormative life. That's how I figured out that that didn't work for me.
Mm.
Um, but otherwise, I was just some dorky kid who didn't really understand why I had to be a certain way. I didn't understand that there was another option
Mm.
until I did, and then I started working on it.
So, how did you learn that there were other options? Did you get exposed to a different community? Did you find the kink world? Did you meet someone that had transitioned? What was that process like?
Yeah. So there was a little bit of, I guess, exposure on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was a teenager, I there was nobody queer of any kind uh, in my sphere. Um, and I think about that a lot at this point, that I would have figured things out a lot sooner, because I didn't like start figuring my gender shit out until I was in my later 20s, mid to late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I would have figured it out earlier if I didn't known that there were possibilities. Um, but I didn't when I was a teenager. So once I got to college and I met some like like there that was the first time that I met a gay man who propositioned me and pursued me. And as a dorky boy who had never had anybody approach them with sexual interest, that was fascinating for me.
Mm.
I was like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
of course I'm interested.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so, I mean, I was in the early college years meeting my first like gay people in my life. Eventually, I figured out that there was a kink community, that there were BDSM clubs, educational groups, and I lived in Columbia, South Carolina at the time, and there was a group there that's been around forever called T3WD, and I went there for a munch and met a lot of queer people and other trans people. And that was the first real exposure that I had to gender fuckery on
Mm.
a I don't know, any kind of openness kind of way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my safe space for that until went until I went on hormone therapy.
Mm. So you've gone to this first munch and you're speaking to the first trans people that you've encountered by the sounds of it. Did you
Mhm.
have an instant recognition that, they were your people, or was it more a slower process and gradual recognition that happened?
It was not an instant, "These are my people now."
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, the the trans people that I met were significantly older than me.
Okay.
Um, and that generation views transition very differently than trans people today.
Mm-hmm.
Just generalizing here, um, there was a lot more adherence to the binary, is how I will put that.
Right.
That having this gender expression in the middle of femininity and masculinity was not well received. Um, Not to say they that there would be pushback on it, but you would be sort of categorized a different way. Um, for example, as a like a crossdresser, if you were the kind of person who was masculine presenting out in your day to day life and was uh, would dress feminine in kink spaces, people would probably just label you as a crossdresser, even
Mm-hmm.
if you were trans. And the distinction was not my favorite thing. Um,
Mm.
but I did meet some younger trans people, and also near the end of my time in undergraduate college, I uh, undergraduate
Mm-hmm.
trans kids
Mm-hmm.
uh, who were very sort of open to all ideas of gender, which was a little more along the lines of what fit with me.
Mm. Mm-hmm. So now you're meeting these people and you're having these conversations and experiences. Did that allow you to look back at your life up until that point and see early signs that pointed toward the life that you're living now?
Okay, I wouldn't say that I am one of those trans people that looks back and goes like, I was always there. I
Mm-hmm.
see it. Like
Mm-hmm.
if only someone had, when I was a kid and I played with dolls or whatever. Um, I I don't think that was there for me.
Mm.
Um, there were some things. I always wanted my hair very long when I was a kid. I loved it. I love having long flowy hair.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like I like when I was younger, I just saw myself as a guy with long flowy hair. I didn't see it as like this is incongruent with being a man.
Mm.
Um, it was just something that I liked, and so I made it a part of who I was.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I was on hormone therapy that I really started to feel. So the shift in hormones is I don't know how to describe that. That it is such a change. That was when I was like, this is correct for me.
Mm. Mm-hmm. And that's when you started considering surgery, I presume?
It took me probably 6 years,
Oh,
seven
wow.
years to get to the point where so for bottom surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had a breast augmentation and then I had the bottom surgery that I described
Mm-hmm.
earlier. Um, my breast augmentation was much easier. That was a matter of good insurance. Um, once it was a real thing, a real possibility, I was like, heck yes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do this. Bottom surgery was not so easy because I knew I wanted to experience what I would interpret as a more authentic experience of femininity, not to make it not to discredit anybody else's experience, but to me that was how I felt I would experience that
Mm.
more authentically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, so I wanted bottom surgery for that reason, but I also didn't want to lose the ability to have sex in the most gratifying way that I had always known. And I never hated having sex as a man, having sex topping. Um, I I always enjoyed that role, and I didn't want to lose that, so I wasn't really sure what to do. I scheduled a bunch of consults for bottom surgery with like the excellent bottom surgery surgeons, just like the best people, because I had this really good insurance that would cover it. And I was like, wow, I'm going to go get like the best people. And the wait list was like 2 and some change years long just to get a consult, not
Mm.
the surgery, just the consult. So I was like, put me on the list and I'll figure it out in the meantime. And during that time, by the time this consult date came up for this one particular surgeon that I was really ecstatic about, by the time that consult date came up, I had already had bottom surgery with the surgeon who had agreed to do this, to the surgery that I ended up having. We refer to as a phallus-preserving vaginoplasty.
Mm.
Um, and I knew the surgeon by reputation as a good surgeon. I was very surprised at how fast it all went, but he took an interest, and we had sort of a collaborative approach about it, which was just amazing, an amazing surgical experience for
Mm.
me,
Mhm.
uh, because this was his first time doing this kind of surgery.
Oh, wow.
Um, So we sort of figured it out together, and everything went wonderful. And I have both genital sets, and I get to have both experiences.
Mm. Okay, fascinating. So some people listening might be wondering about the surgery itself. So how did they manage to keep your phallus intact and also create a vagina? Because you said it's a phallus-preserving vaginoplasty. Can you take us
Yeah,
through what the actual procedure involves?
yeah. You got a whole nother episode for me. I'll try and condense it down. So here, medical stuff. All right. So normally in a classical sort of penile inversion vaginoplasty, uh, they invert the penis and make the vaginal canal out of it, basically going into the pelvic floor, um, where I can't remember the name of the inguinal canals, the canals where um, semen comes through.
Mhm.
Um, right about where those come down to the scrotum, um, that is where they generally make the neovaginal canal. So the neovaginal canal, in my case, is in the same place, but instead of inverting the penis to create it, um, it was two two kinds of tissue. The entrance is the scrotal tissue inverted,
Mm.
and the depth of the canal was created using a skin graft off of my abdomen.
Okay.
So they didn't actually touch any of the erectile tissue.
Mm. Mhm. So how long does that type of procedure take and what is the recovery process like?
I I sort of got a less invasive version of a traditional vaginoplasty in the sense that my urethra didn't have to be rerouted, and that is
Mm.
the source of a lot of um, complications and issues with healing in vaginoplasties. So I avoided all of those complications. Um, the timeline for healing was, uh, let's see, I did nothing the first month. I worked from home for month 2 and 3. Somewhere after month 3, I was cleared for sex again, but I was like, hell no. I mean, I was like gonna try, but it was not. I was still so swollen and
Mm.
it was not really feasible. Um, I believe it was around month 9 when was first able to comfortably have receptive sex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So is this a very common procedure? Do you know anyone else that's had it done?
I do not know in person anyone else that has had this done.
Mm-hmm.
I know a few people online. I know that there is a Discord server for Salmations that I use that term because that is the term that they use for the server. Um, I am not part of that Discord server. It is a mix of there's very few people who's actually had the surgery on there. Um, to my knowledge, the number of people who have this surgery done are in the hundreds, to the
Okay.
best of my knowledge.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that it took quite a few months to recover, and then you were able to have your first sexual experience after the surgery. What was
Mhm.
that first sexual experience like?
It was just like shock.
In a good or a bad way, or everywhere?
Every way.
Okay.
Every way. It was there's on the one hand, it was a very validating experience in that being the receptive partner for sex in that way for vaginal sex, it was like, this is exactly correct. This is what it was supposed to be like.
Mm.
Um, it was also like, where the heck does it go? To this day, I will still see something inside me and go, where the fuck is it? And that is so I'm a year and a half in at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, about a year and a half in. Um, and yeah, it doesn't stop surprising me.
Mm.
Um, just how incredible it is to be on that side of sex. Um, sensation wise, it is almost overwhelming for me. It I successfully achieve orgasm both ways, and it's a completely different experience
Mm.
either way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just fascinating to me. Um, I need to be a little bit of a masochist to get through it sometimes, because um, I don't know, it does. So the thing about uh, post-op vaginas is that you get sort of in a use it or lose it situation for the rest of your life, and so there is some maintenance that has to happen. Um, the longer that you are post-op, the less maintenance. But um, at least in my case, I always have to have lube because I don't create my own lubrication. And if I go too long without stretching everything properly or doing it that frequently enough, it can be kind of uncomfortable to get started back up.
Mm.
Um, being a masochist, that is kind of fun. That might not be for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a good part of the experience for me.
Mm. So you've mentioned about these two different types of orgasms that you're having, and you described the one from your vagina. I'm not sure, do you refer to it as your penis, or what do you
Oh,
call?
I have both. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So you call it your
I
penis. Yep.
yeah, I'll call it my dick, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Just checking I've got the right language for you. So,
Yeah.
in terms of your orgasm from your dick, is it the same as before? Has that changed as well?
That hasn't changed.
Okay.
So um, I think that my current state is typical for somebody, at least as far as peanut operations go,
Mm.
is typical for anybody who has had their testicles removed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I experience orgasm the same way. I get there the same way. And um, yeah, things work as intended.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what about in terms of letting go of your testicles, of that part of yourself? Was there any grief involved in the transition process? Did you feel like you were leaving anything behind, or was it more of a process of gaining something for you?
It was definitely a gaining experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
I went into the surgery um, being very aware that there is a possibility that the vaginal canal uh, it doesn't take, or if for some reason the tissue around it constricts too much, and I'm not able to maintain it, or I know other trans women who have had bottom surgery, traditional vaginoplasties, that they have failed to result in their goals of having a vaginal canal.
Mm.
Uh, and that is just the reality of that surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I had to make some peace with myself that um, I might not have the canal as I wanted it,
Right.
but I it didn't phase me that my my balls were going away. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, no, throw those fuckers in the trash. I like, yeah.
Mm. And what about your desire and what turns you on? Has anything changed in terms of your desire template, I like to call it? Have you noticed any changes in what you're drawn to or what you enjoy?
I I think it's more of a realization, in that that it's one thing to fantasize about what it is like to have a vagina, and for that to be the imagery that helps me achieve orgasm during anal sex, speaking pre-op.
Mm.
But post-op, to actually experience it, it sort of expands on that fantasy, because now there's this reality of experiencing it, and it adds a lot more depth to it. So it is the same things that I am enjoying, but I have a much better, more authentic understanding of them.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Beautifully said. So, another tradition on the podcast is exploring a piece of research with you. And today's is from Bochting and colleagues, who published a large review titled Adult Development and Quality of Life of Transgender and Gender Nonconforming People. And one of the key findings was that gender affirmation, social, bodily, and erotic, is strongly associated with improved mental health, sexual satisfaction, and sense of self-continuity. Importantly, they'd emphasize that well-being increases not just from fixing dysphoria, but from feeling at home in one's body. So when you hear that idea, feeling at home in your body, does that capture what changed for you erotically after surgery?
In a word, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it helped me really understand the experience that I was trying to have. And like I was saying, in more than just a kind of fantasy way. But it went beyond just sex as well, and that there's um, I kind of like lost my train of thought there. So the whole experience of feeling at home in my body, um, there is the sexual component of that. There is the social component of that, and that is just between me and me
Mm-hmm.
in the mirror at home alone. Um, and that sort of feeling at home idea is doesn't happen across all three of those spaces on the same time frame
Mm.
or in the same way.
Mm.
Uh, the the most difficult one to achieve, in my opinion, is feeling at home between me and me when I'm alone. It
Mm.
it the sort of mental projection of myself of what I am and what I look like. There is this ideal that I have, and then there is this sort of idea of me that my brain has had dragging, kicking, and screaming from my past, where it formed this image of me, and then I had to try to change it. Um, so that feeling at home was a matter of working on that incongruency,
Mm.
um, so that when my brain thinks about me and the way I look and who I am, it sees me as I am, and not me 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that's the most difficult version of that sort of battle for being at home in my own body.
Mm-hmm.
The social transition part, like feeling at home because other people treat me as the gender that I want to be treated as, was a bit easier in that there are concrete goals that I can work on. There are just things that I can do. I can go, oh, I need to work on my voice. I need to work on my posture. I need to work on my wardrobe. I need to give my hormone therapy time to do whatever it's going to do. I can pursue surgeries. There are concrete things that can happen, and that to me is easier to digest.
Mm.
So I went about and did a lot of those things and achieved that goal for myself, um, sooner the uh, than the between me and me
Mm-hmm.
idea of being at home in your body,
Mm.
or my body. And then there's the sexuality side of things, and my bottom surgery was what it took to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the research also highlighted pervasive stigma and discrimination attached to gender nonconformity and how this impacts the health of transgender people across the lifespan, particularly when it comes to mental health and well-being. So for those listening who may be wanting to understand your experience and overcome any stigma that they have towards transgender people, is there anything that you would like to share about this part of your experience or want them to understand?
Um, I think, well, that's a tough question.
Mm.
So I think maybe two things. Um, the first thing I would say is that um, people who are in transition are in transition. They are not at a set point in their life. They are in flux and they're
Mm.
trying things, and they're trying to figure out who they are and what that looks like. And that's not a pleasant experience for them. It might not be a pleasant experience to be around. I was a terribly insecure person early on in my transition. I cannot, I just, I appreciate all the grace that the people around me gave me because of that. It's a very difficult time. You know, it's we trans people, we joke that it's a second puberty, and so there's a lot of those same sort of insecure moments that an awkward teenager might have. So yeah, please grace, because we are figuring things out. That might be one of the things that shows up as that is frequently difficult for people are pronouns and somebody's name. Somebody might change their name more than once. And that's tough. You know, you don't want to feel like you're about to walk into a trap when you're and everything. And so nobody wants to be unsure about what to do in that situation. And so I understand the discomfort around that, but I think just having good communication and asking and having the grace for somebody to figure it out. And frequently trans people early on in their transition are obviously trans and will give you their assigned at birth gender because they don't think that you will understand, or maybe they're not comfortable with themselves in asking for that. So just patience and understanding. And then the other thing, support is a difficult thing. This is more for the people who are very directly involved with a trans person who is undergoing transition or figuring out what their transition looks like. There is support that looks like hell yeah, go for it, and you couldn't. You really support them in terms of like express yourself however you want to express yourself. I'll gender you however you want to be gendered, and so on. And that is largely in words, but in actions that might fall flat. So there's a kind of support that looks like all of that, except all along the way, it kind of is like, it would be a little bit easier in this situation if, we weren't trying to figure out all the trans stuff in the middle of it. If we're going to Thanksgiving dinner with the family and could you tone it down a little bit? Those kinds of things. Like, that's really tough. I understand that is a tough situation to be in because you have to manage so many different kinds of people's emotions. But those choices are remembered and they're noted. And so the kind of support that looks like actions, being there for your person or for your family member, around other people, in front of other people, that is a big, it was a big deal to me. It was a crazy level of importance to feel accepted and validated.
That's great insight and advice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So we've spoken extensively about how you were pre-transition, the transitioning process, and how you are now. You mentioned earlier that you feel like you're coming to the end of your transition process. I'm curious to hear, how do you know that that is happening? What does that feel like? What does that mean for you?
Sure. I think everybody has a vision for themselves and their bodies and what they want their bodies to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And, what do our ideal selves look like? And how do we get there? And for the longest time, for me, that was about my gender. It was about, how do I dress myself? How's my body shaped as a result of my hormone therapy and surgeries? You know, what is the expression of my gender come across to myself and to those around me? And these days, it looks a lot more like managing my weight and working out and having a body that looks good in a bikini, and getting the kinds of tattoos that I want and piercings that I want. There's sort of body modifications that aren't gender specific.
Mm-hmm.
So I still have goals. I still am growing, and I still am going to maintain and push my body along towards this ideal image of it that I have. But those things are not very gendered things for me.
Mm. Mm-hmm. So we also have a tradition on the podcast where I ask the guest a question sourced from the listeners. And today I had two. I think you've answered the first one, which was about the amount of sensation that you have post-surgery. But I also have another one here that I don't think we've quite touched upon yet. And it's from someone asking this. Considering trans women and trans men can experience a huge amount of gender dysphoria via the genitals, how do you experience and or manage that given your unique transition?
Sure. The short answer to that is that most of my gender dysphoria, when it came to my genitals, came from my balls.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. I always thought they were weird. I didn't like having them.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a long time to narrow down on that idea. Because I never really disliked having a dick. Like, it
Mm.
just, I don't know. It was a source of pleasure, and it is how I like to have sex, and it was just, that was all good things for me. But my scrotum and testicles, I was just like, I don't like, why do I have to have this? Um, and so, like, once I finally identified that, I was actually getting somewhere with figuring out what I needed to do for bottom surgery. So I don't really have gender dysphoria when it comes to my genitals anymore. Um, I, I will say that, there are, I suppose the way to put it is like insecurities about, like, I wish things looked a little different. But um, by and large, I, got what I was trying to get.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. Like, I got, I don't know, 95% of the way there, let's say.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
if
It's
and if I was
exciting.
going to change anything at this point, it would be cosmetic.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you've also written extensively about your transition and your experiences in the kink world. I was wondering if you would be up for reading a piece of your writing of your choosing, if you're comfortable with that. I'm sure the listeners would love to hear it.
Oh boy. Um, I yes. Um,
Cool.
okay, so I have this piece of writing that I published a few months ago that I titled "On Sluttery," because I sort of struggled with, like, how to talk about like the fact that I have both genital sets, and I want to use both genital sets, and that I greatly enjoy the whole sexual aspect of having this expanded sort of view of sexuality from this. And so I was going to read this sort of introduction part of this writing. It's quite long, but the intro to it, I think, sums up what I'm trying to get across here.
Right.
It starts, "Hi, I'm a slut. I am many things, but this is one aspect of myself that I've been endeavoring to nurture and grow, but like responsibly. As it turns out, that's really difficult to do. Slut has some stigma, which is not totally unfounded. In my head, it is a little bit like how sadist isn't a bad word at all, but there are absolutely trash, dickhole, irresponsible, and dangerous sadists. A responsible, empathetic, thoughtful, and conscientious sadist is a wonderful thing, though, and I think the same is true of sluttery. My personal draw to sluttery comes from this desire to have all kinds of experiences, and to have those experiences be intense, authentic, positive, and novel. Once upon a time, I was the guy that dished out this experience to women, and in the true nature of the kind of person that goes and gets a surgery to have both a pussy and a cock, I want to get to be that girl getting wrecked too, damn it." I'll stop with it there. It's quite long, but it's the one of the more recent pieces that I've written about just the experience of where I am at post-op.
Mm-hmm. So is that something that you're looking forward to in the future, exploring more of what it means to be a slut from the other side?
That's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I am cock deep in it, let's say.
Okay, well, let's chat about this then. What is a peak erotic experience that you're happy to share with us today? An experience that has really stayed with you? Maybe something recently from your slut explorations, or something from the past?
Okay. Yeah, so I for I don't know, ever maybe. I don't know. I have always wanted this experience from a dominant leaning male person. Um, very much in line with the kind of experience that would I would give to a female partner of mine. Um, which that is to say, when I am with a person like that, like with Twister Tail, with her, um, I am very passionate and urgent. I'm not shy about consensual violence. And I greatly enjoy experimenting and trying all the things, no matter how um, sadistic or how much suffering or how humiliating or embarrassing it might be. So having wanted that on the other side has been something I've been chasing this for I don't know, ever probably, and I had never really found it. I got pretty close lately. I met this guy, this random dude on Grinder, who just did the thing. I don't know how to explain it. I am not shy about casual sex. It serves its purpose for me. Um, it's not the same thing as sex with my my established partners in any way, but it is a separate thing. It scratches an itch for me, and it's fun. So I'll get on the apps. I'll meet people, and I meet this guy, and he can do it. He can hurt me in the way that I asked to be hurt, and talk to me about it, intelligently.
Mm.
and actually know what it means when I ask him to do these things. He has no history in the BDSM community. He hardly even knows that that's a thing.
Hmm.
And he just has it. And so I am just I have had a few um sessions, I guess I will say, with him now, and uh gotten to the point of some familiarity with doing a lot of different kinds of things to me. And like for the first time, I get to be like, oh, I'm going to go see, this guy and he's going to fuck my shit up really good. And it not just be like, ah, we just had sex and that was it. Like it's the kind of sexual encounter where I will days later be sitting on the couch and be like, oh my God. And my partner will be like, what? And I'll be like, I just remembered this thing. The guy, he took a work call in the middle of the session. It just kept going. There's just shit like that that I would just remember days later.
Mhm.
And it's fascinating to be on the other side in that way. It's
Mm.
really it's a joy. It really is.
Mhm. I can hear it in your voice, and I'm so glad you found someone to experience that with. Mhm. So, Dreamer, is there anything else that we haven't touched upon so far? Perhaps something that you want listeners to understand about altersex bodies or your experience, or a different topic that you'd like to share about before we finish?
So earlier in the episode, I had mentioned about being leather, and that
Mm.
that is an important part of how I experience BDSM. Um, Mostly, I think many people, many leather people, experience this as a community type of uh, experience. I'm trying to find a different word there, but I will use that word again. But so I spent some time a few years ago trying to figure out, like, okay, well, what is leather and how does that fit with me? Like, I think it fits with me. I think that this is a thing for me, but I'm not really sure. And I did all of this digging. Um, I think a common experience for somebody in that situation of going like, well, what is leather? And you get this sort of generic answer about it being this like subculture that comes out of this like history um, of uh, uh, gay people, gay bars in the 60s and 70s and so on. And that today it is this culture of like authenticity and community, and you'll find a lot about that: authenticity, community, tradition, history, service, family, honor. And the thing that strikes me about all these descriptions is that it doesn't really explain the BDSM side of it, because like we will as leather people, we will talk about those parts of the leather community, and then like we will get together at these conferences and meetings and so on, and really harp on all of the community stuff, volunteering and raising money and doing educational things and having classes and workshops. But at the same time, like we are all also the kind of people that go and throw down in the dungeon and are intense sadomasochists, um, of all flavors.
Mhm.
Um, and so, with that context, like I dug a little bit deeper into this more carnal aspects of leather, and there is this writing that I wanted to bring up.
Please.
That is about leather. It's on Fat Life by a user named Chewy23, and he calls it My Fluid Manifesto. And he talks about all the same like history, community, and ethos of brotherhood, and honor. But he has this line in there where he says, "Leather is the radical commitment to sex, not just as a legitimate human value, but as a primary human value. It is a prayer offered with curled toes rather than clasped hands.
Mm.
It understands the agony is the ecstasy. And I think that is just like a fantastic description of what I love about BDSM, about leather. This is a group of people that understands that side of sex. And so as a thing that I use as an identifier for myself, it's really hard to explain what that is. And that is where I find my people. Because they get that.
I love how you referred to the curled toes. That was that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So if there's someone listening that is feeling constrained by their own rigid ideas about gender or how desire is supposed to look, but they're curious about exploring themselves and their gender, and what would you want them to hear?
Try everything. Surround yourself with the people that will support you trying everything. That is the long and short of it. Sometimes that is a hard thing to push yourself to do, to surround yourself with new people, to change your environment. That's an uncomfortable thing, but exploring your gender is an uncomfortable thing, and it requires embracing that discomfort.
And what about in terms of your own eroticism? Now, if we had to sum it up in one word, what word would you use today and why?
I'm gonna go back to the Altersex word. I like that phrase because it is descriptive without being narrow. And it I think it fits me very well in that things are just something else. And that is true whether we're talking about the physical sex characteristics or the sexual attraction or the expression of sex through BDSM.
Beautiful. Well, Dreamer, thank you for sharing your erotic realm and for speaking so candidly about gender, embodiment, desire, and becoming. It's been a pleasure to chat to you.
It's been a pleasure, Em. Thank you.
Thank you again. I'm Em, and this has been the Erotic Realm podcast. Thank you for listening to the Erotic Realm. If this episode stirred something in you, please take a moment to follow the show, leave a rating, or write a review on wherever you're listening. It helps more people find the show and brings visibility to this deeper conversation about eroticism and self-understanding. I'd also like to invite you to dive deeper into the psychology of desire, including my writing, research, and upcoming courses over at psychologyofdesire.com. This is where I release the Psychology of Desire case files, behind-the-scenes thoughts, and intimate reflections every week, plus more. Until next time, stay curious, stay embodied, and keep exploring. Also, as always, stay perverted.